What?
We are doing the PowerPoint.
Where are you going right now?
Answering the pop-up questions for the state census.
Where?
Okay, so today we're going to be talking all about this idea of moving west. For homework, you looked at the Oregon Trail, so kind of set you up for this lecture. And you looked at the gold rush. Two reasons, or gold rush was the reason why people went west. Oregon Trail was a way to get west. There are other things we're going to be talking about more specifically today with this lecture. The first is how this land opens up. At the end of the homework, you're actually going to read about Native American policies, our government policies towards the Native Americans, in a nutshell. So there are three basic policies that are going to be followed. One is to kick them west, just keep pushing them towards California. Forced removal, put them into the plains territory. So you have all these Indian tribes who used to live on the East Coast. You're pushing them out to the middle of the continent. Different tribes who don't get along, you're going to push them all over there. You're going to create this huge plains territory, this huge Indian reservation. That's where all the Indians go. Halfway through the 1800s, they're really going to be, there's no good Indian but a dead Indian. That's basically the American policy.
Snap.
Okay? And then things happen, which we'll talk about next class, and the government tries to make things a little bit better. So they're trying to assimilate Native American tribes and make them whites, make them accept white culture, white society. So they want them to go to schools, they send them to boarding schools, kids, Indian children of the age of go to boarding schools. They try to make them as white as possible. And they try to give them land. It doesn't work. There's been this history of abuse of the Native Americans for quite some time, as we've learned about so far, and we will continue to talk about next class. So, land opens up out west. And the government needs to make money off of this land. Jesse, you need to go back to your seat, please. Kylie, you can move over. Austin, you need to go back to your seat.
I've been eating paper for a long time. When was that did?
Congress passes a law known as the Pacific Railways Act, 1862 and 1864. This law was passed during the Civil War. So right now we're kind of skipping before and after the Civil War. Our next unit will be the Civil War, but right now we're kind of talking about the entire 19th century, certain movements that are going on in this time period. You play Monopoly. What do you always want to get besides the blue ones, the rich ones, right? Park Avenue, things like that. You want to get the railroads, yeah, because the railroads can make you lots of money. The Pacific Railways Act gives the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad monopoly pieces.
Monopoly.
They get huge land grants from the federal government.
I want to play Monopoly, but I really don't want to play Monopoly.
These big businesses, railroads was a big business. Okay, so these railroad companies were actually given land out west in the hopes that these companies are going to build railroad tracks and encourage people to settle out west. Why does our government want people to settle out west?
So they can create new states.
New states created, yes.
Take it.
You get more taxes, okay? People coming to the United States, you can get more tax money, okay? Tax revenue. If you control a whole territory but nobody lives there, what might be a danger or a threat? Well, Indians, yes, but besides Native Americans. People might come to conquer it. But if people are living there and you've established a home, wouldn't you protect your home and your family if somebody tried to come and take it? Yeah. So the government wants American citizens to settle the West to keep it safe from
Too long.
Well, the British controlled Canada, so the British were a threat from the north. You have, we don't really have threats in North America, but Mexico, there's all, war with Mexico, we won the territory, and then they actually sold us territory under the Gadsden Purchase. So Indians within the nation, yes. Britain was the biggest because they were already established in Canada. Okay,
Still a lot of things.
so here's what the railroads did. This should not take us very long, but if I have to keep stopping because people are talking, it will take us forever. And that's just so tedious. Makes it so boring. Okay. So the railroads are building tracks out west, and they control land 10 miles on both sides of the track. Okay, so they have this wide path of land that they control, and they're going to sell off that land to people to settle, to businesses, and make profits. So railroads are profiting greatly. They're expanding by building those railroads, helping people to settle west, and they're making huge profits as they sell the land that the government gave them to sell. Okay. Any questions so far on that? There were two other important laws that encouraged settlement. So the Railroad Act was one. The second one was the Moral Land Grant. If you go to Cal Poly Pomona, right up the 60 freeway up here, it's an ag school. Anybody know what that means? An ag school. Yeah. It was an agriculture. It was founded as an agricultural school. You can learn about agriculture and farming and all about animals. That was the basis of that college. It's obviously grown into a different direction, but they still have a huge ag program. The Moral Land Grant, basically our government distributed millions of acres of land to state governments. So for example, they gave California millions of acres of land. And the state of California said, if you are willing to build a school, an agricultural school on this land, we will give you that land. So it provided support for these agricultural-based colleges because these were the types of skills that people needed out west. Mostly farming at this point, unless you worked on the railroads. Land sold to bankers and land speculators for 50 cents an acre. Very, very cheap. So what ended up happening is California and other states actually sold a lot of this land to speculators, people who bought up land for cheap, and then eventually what did they do? Turn around and sold it. Okay. So there were examples of colleges that were established that were agricultural-based colleges, like Cal Poly Pomona, but oftentimes this land was sold to bankers or speculators, not for the original purpose that our federal government had intended. The next major piece of legislation that will help people to move out west is the Homestead Act. Stop.
Oh, there it is.
Land speculators are people who buy up large tracts of land from the government in the hope of selling it later for a profit. So it's people today, let's do a modern day parallel. People today who have enough money right now can buy up foreclosed homes for very cheap on a short sale, and then they're going to hold on to that investment, that property, until the market gets better. They might make some upgrades in the home, and then maybe 5 years from now, if the market's better, they're going to sell it for a huge profit. That's what land speculators do. They buy up large pieces of land for a small amount of money, hold on to it until the land becomes valuable, and then they sell it for a big profit. Explain how the railroad companies became rich and powerful during America's westward expansion. What helped them to become rich and powerful? Okay? And who gives them the land?